Welcome to EPISD Live. I'm here with Tom Vandereyck, the CEO of Getting Smart. He's visiting El Paso schools today. How are you doing, Tom?
Good to be with you, Juan.
I'm excited that you're here.
It's great to be back.
Absolutely, always great. Let's get started here. You came in 2014, your first visit to El Paso. We met in Austin during one of my many trips to Austin in the first couple of years. And I talked to you about wanting to really build a different kind of school district, one that focused not only on the academic standards required by the state, but also maybe look differently at helping kids develop and grow into young adults. We put together some strategic priorities and a plan. Talk to me a bit about that plan and how it might compare to the other large urbans you've worked with across the country.
Well, the easiest way to answer it is just to describe this morning. And I just saw a New Tech Academy at Bowie High School, right? That's a school that's really struggled with a lot of challenges.
A lot of test prep there, a lot of other things. Yeah.
And I saw just a magical learning environment, a place that was that really exemplified your strategic plan. It was a place that was all about active learning with engaged learners. It had community partnerships. And I love the fact that they were really focused on problem solving and collaborative learning. And there was a place where there was real social emotional learning that was happening both between the kids and the teachers.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the most exciting aspects of what you shared with me, I think, in my mind, as we spoke about active learning and said that, you know, it's just, we have to get our kids out of rows. You know, the way that you and I went to school, the industrial model, you know, it's just not going to work anymore. Our kids, you know, our freshmen in high school were born in 2002. So these are a different breed of kids. I never thought about the fact that engaged learning that you see at New Tech and could actually be a huge boost in working conditions for a teacher. Honestly, I was thinking about the child, but share with me some of what you heard from some of the teachers about their excitement.
So we visited with a couple of the new teachers, but what was really exciting was the veteran teachers at Bowie that had taught for 20 or 25 years and had taught by themselves, and they had their lessons down and they felt confident as a teacher, but struggled alone against really significant odds. And what was so exciting to see is these veteran teachers that were just on fire about the work that they're doing, and for the first time team teaching. So they're in a big double classroom together with a group of kids. And it's these wonderful mashups of subjects. So we saw a classroom today that was biology and art, and it was an art teacher who is obviously an extraordinary artist and art teacher, but for the first time, he's experiencing biology and science in a new way. And so every day he's seeing new forms of art. He's seeing art in the physical world in a way that he hadn't. We went to another classroom where there was a geography teacher teaching English. And he was invigorated in both the spoken and written word. And the English teacher was thinking very differently about every piece of literature that he had read, because now he was thinking about it geographically and what the context meant to the piece of literature. So these are teams of teachers doing really creative work. You know, they get inspiration from the New Tech platform, but they're developing lessons that are meaningful to them, meaningful to the student. They have kids doing work that they never imagined themselves being able to do, sprinting to these public products that are really exciting, work that kids and families and communities can be proud of.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting me inspired and excited about that. I think one of the best examples I saw of integrated curriculum when I first visited New Tech schools 10 years ago was a combined class of English language arts, history, and economics, and they wrote about the economics of history. I mean, what a great way. I mean, for those of us that were struggling through these, you know, single subject math and writing, and I was certainly those, it's a dream to me to get kids excited about writing because they're doing it about something a little more hands-on and tangible. You know, I think you and I share the passion, and I'm more than excited about what you saw today. We share the passion of, if you look at the landscape nationally, and specifically Texas, a birthplace of state accountability. We know that from a federal standpoint and from a state standpoint, Texas reduced the number of accountability tests by 2/3 in the last couple of legislative sessions. So we know that there's a movement across the country to say, we believe in accountability. You and I both believe in accountability, but we don't want to be we don't want the test to be the curriculum or teaching to the test. But on the flip side, as we move to these holistic, engaging, active learning environments, I always worry, and I've talked to you about this, how do we make sure we meet all the academic standards and still offer these tremendous opportunities for kids? Share some thoughts on that.
Well, we're at a real formative place in America right now, and Texas and El Paso in particular is really at the vanguard of that movement. We know from the last 10 or 12 years of research that mindset matters, right? That how kids think about themselves as a learner and a person matters a lot to how they do in school and in life. We know that social emotional learning is critically important. We know that the ability to manage yourself and your time, your interactions with other people, to be able to read social situations, and then to collaborate with a really diverse group. We know those are more important things in business. Both of us, are non-traditional superintendents. We know from our own experience that it is those things: initiative, drive, a focus on effort, the ability to collaborate.
Growth mindset.
Those are the things that matters. So we know that, and we're seeing evidence of that across El Paso in classrooms today, and that's exciting. We're getting better at providing individual feedback to students, and today at Bowie and at Hart Elementary.
You got to say also New Tech.
Also New Tech. I saw really good examples of high quality feedback to students. So at New Tech, every project has a rubric where they're scoring critical thinking, collaboration, the communication, and also the agency, how students manage themselves. So those students are getting really in-depth feedback on the stuff that matters. What we're still early at is being able to roll that up to a school level and then to a district level, so that you at the superintendent level and then your board can see that your students are making progress in collaboration, in agency. And I'm excited about, like you, the work of CASEL in CASEL.org.
CASEL.org, yes.
In social emotional learning, and they just issued a report today that showed us good examples of how to develop social emotional learning, but they acknowledge that the instruments that we have are still better at providing individual feedback than rolling up to the district. Right. And so the challenge in the next few years is going to be building a better dashboard so that we can better communicate to our communities the progress that we're making. And you're beginning to make good use of proxy data here in El Paso. You're looking at discipline. You're looking at attendance. You're beginning to use survey data. So those are not direct measures, but they're good proxy measures for, is this a better place to go to school, and are kids building the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that we know are really critical for the workplace.
You know, it's interesting in all that you mentioned there in the last few minutes in terms of collaboration, creativity, communication. None of these are academic standards required by the state. So the challenge is, and this is where I lean on folks like you and others that we've asked to help us. I know this is the right thing. I call it the learning behind the learning. We know that we have to meet the academic standards, and we know that we can do it if kids are in rows and they, basically don't talk and take your notes. But wouldn't it be beautiful if they could learn the academic standards and then learn all of these other social skills and build a greater emotional strength and confidence? If you can do all of that and still meet the academic standards, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Why wouldn't you? Now speak to this a bit. And I want to acknowledge our teachers. This is very difficult work. If I've done something for 10, 15, 20 years in a certain way, and I've got in my mind, classroom management is kind of out, right? So it's not a factor. I know my classroom management, it's there. I'm just trying to get my content communicated and make sure the children learn it. But if now we add active learning and all these other aspects that you mentioned to the classroom, that is a lot of extra stress for teachers. I mean, I just think it's important that we acknowledge that this is hard for teachers, but it's the right thing to do.
It is hard work, particularly the shift. We talked to a young algebra teacher this morning who had a really difficult first semester. She was still trying to manage her classroom and personalized learning for every student, but in sort of a top-down way, in a teacher-centered math classroom. And then finally, at the semester break, she really got the hang of a blended and personalized classroom, and she gave kids a lot more power in the second semester. Began grouping kids, began encouraging more peer-to-peer learning, and all of a sudden she broke through and recognized that if she gave kids the ownership of their own learning, gave kids the assets, gave kids the ability to learn, with and from each other in this sort of a blended class rotation model, that it was much easier for her, right? And so she went from this point of familiarity to sort of maximum complexity and total career frustration, and then made it to the other side where she realized that she could create a classroom that was much better for her and for her students. But we have to go through that transition, and you have a lot of teachers right now that are going through that difficult transition from the way they learned, the way they used to teach. They're learning some new tools, right? So you're rolling out a new learning platform shortly, and so there is going to be some challenging months ahead. But what we saw evidence of this morning are learning environments that are not only better for kids, they're better for teachers. They're more collaborative, they're more supportive, because the teachers are also experiencing personalized learning and personalized supports in a more collaborative environment.
And I guess, what I've heard, and again, I have not done it, so I'm speaking from experience of visiting with teachers. It's a little bit of that letting go of that control where I'm controlling the message, I'm controlling the content. But once you make that shift and you become more of a facilitator and you're helping the kids learn from each other, I've heard them all say without exception, it's actually easier on the other side. It's just getting over the mountain that's hard. Right. It's hard to get over the mountain and think, am I going to be really, because at the end of the day, we all have the obligation to communicate and to have our kids learn the standards. It's almost counterintuitive that they're going to learn them in that sort of fashion. But if you've seen evidence of it, it can happen. I mean, our new tech kids in our first year in ninth grade on two sides of town from Franklin and Urban, they scored better on STAR than their peers. And there was essentially no test prep in those classes. And we did not, that was not a class you had to qualify to get into. It was completely open enrollment. So
I do want to add that you can move to a high engagement environment that's not very rigorous, right?
Okay,
so there's the risk of, the Burgess staff is having a really great conversation right now about project-based learning. It's easy, relatively, to move to a project-based environment. It's hard to do it well, right? So the quality control around PBL is different. It means that you have to exercise a lot of thought up front in helping young people build really thoughtful projects. You need to build a rubric that incorporates a lot of problem solving, reading and writing into that rubric so that it's really clear up front what students need to know and be able to do. Then you need to give them a picture of quality. What does quality work really look like? Like in this lab report or in this geography and literature assignment, this is what a really good project looks like, so keep that in mind. So if you do those things, you can help students, one, do work that they're proud of, but also meet the standards in reading, writing, and math. The magic is that in addition to those things, we can build agency, we can build collaboration, we can build creativity. So we can do all of these things together, but it does require a different kind of work at a different stage in the process.
And one of the other aspects of it in terms of confidence and what you see in kids, and we'll finish here on this point. I was I was very excited to hear one of our schools, that was one of the first New Tech schools, the principal had been a principal for 20, 30 years at the high school level. And she told me that her 9th grade New Tech students were the most confident and the strongest communicators she'd ever seen at that age in her 30 years. And again, I think it's just giving them the chance to find their voice is what I like to say. Rather than just learning the academic standards and regurgitating them, what if we give a child a chance to develop all these other important social emotional skills, which, by the way, aren't just good for school, they're good for life. I mean, they really are good for life.
No, absolutely. We talk about being prepared for college careers and citizenship, and we really are preparing them to be successful in all three.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we need your help. We are, I've talked to you and a few others. We've got to be able to measure this and scale it so that the STAR doesn't become the only focus. We know we have to do it. We believe in accountability. I'm not running from accountability, but I want to do that and develop these very important skills in kids. So we'll stay close together, and I want you to come back and keep checking with us and help us on this progress, because we really do want to. I mean, there's a chance, there's a vacuum. We can be the national leader and the model in the country for this, and we need to do it.
I sat with your dual language team this morning, and I said, do you guys appreciate that you are inventing the future of secondary learning here in El Paso?
Wow.
There is nobody else in the country that is doing blended and personalized social emotional learning and building dual language environments.
Wow.
Right? So you're really at the forefront of so many important trends, and you have such a talented team that is working together in a really collaborative way. It's just really exciting to see.
Well, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon again.